Today we're going to have a look at compound interest. Now, when money is invested, there are two types of interest. Simple interest, which doesn't happen very often, and that's when an amount of money earns a certain amount of interest and it earns the same amount of interest every single year. The more common form is compound interest, where an amount of money is invested, it earns interest at a given rate or percentage. The interest is added on to the original amount, and the interest for the second year is calculated by the combined interest and original amount from the first year. You're better off with compound interest. I think you might have guessed that. So let's have a look at amounts of money. If you invest £100, so we're going to invest £100 and we're going to earn an interest rate of 10%. Now, it's usually written as 10% per annum, which just means 10% per year, and you may even see 10% per annum, just abbreviated to that. Investing £100. So the first year you will have the original £100 and the interest you earn will be 10% of that original £100. So at the end of the year you'll have the £100, 10% of £100 is £10, so at the end of the first year you will have £110. The second year, you start off with the £110 and you add on 10% of the £110. So you will have 110 plus 10% of £110 is £11. So this time you will have, at the end of the second year, £121. So in your third year, you start off with £121, you add 10% of £121, so you will have £121 plus £12 10 so you will have £133 10 altogether in your account. Now you can see that each year interest is increasing. The first year your interest was £10, the second year your interest was £11, and the third year your interest was £12 10. And this is because every single year you're starting off with more money in your account. Now, when you have to do this for several years, it gets quite tedious to do each year separately. So there is an easy way to calculate it. If you start off with the original amount being 100% and you add on 10% every year, so we're starting with the full amount, 100%, and we're adding on 10% every year, at the end of that we will have 110% of what we started with. Now 110%, percent just means out of 100. So 110% is 110 divided by 100, which is 1.10. This 1.10 is called a multiplying factor. And if we multiply our basic amount by 1.10 every year, it will give us how much you've got at the end of the year. So the same calculations as above. In our first year, we started with £100 and multiplying it by 1.10, 100 times 1.10 is 110. The second year, this time we're starting with 110 multiplying by 1.10, and that gives us £121. The third year, you start with £121 multiplied by 1.10, and it gives us £133 10. So rather than having two steps to work out each amount as we did in the first method, we've now worked out each amount in one step. And you can actually do it even quicker than that. If you look at what's actually happening, in the first year, you have got £100 multiplied by 1.10. Now all of that for the second year is then multiplied by 1.10. So your actual sum is the £100 multiplied by 1.10 squared. In the third year, you've got all of that multiplied by 1.10. So I've got £100 multiplied by 1.10 cubed. So if you work out 100 multiplied by 1.10 cubed, that will give you your £133 10. So if you want to calculate how much you've got at the end of 7 years, at the end of the 7th year, the sum you need to do is your original £100 multiplied by 1.10 to the power 7, which would give you £194.87. So you can work out how much you've got very, very quickly by doing one step. So let's look at an example. What is the value after 3 years of £250 invested at 4% per annum compound interest? So the initial amount we're starting with is the £250 and the interest rate is 4% every year and it's being invested for 3 years. So the first thing you need to do is work out what we're going to multiply by. If your interest rate is 4%, then the multiplying factor is the original 100% plus the 4%, which is 104%. 104% is 104 divided by 100, which is 1.04. So that is our multiplying factor. So to find out how much we've got after 3 years, we need the original amount, which is £250, multiplied by 1.04, and we're investing it for 3 years, so it's to the power 3. And that gives us £281.22. And that's how much you would have after 3 years. This method with the multiplying factor and percentages can be used in different contexts. So, for example, a bouncy ball is dropped from the top of a skyscraper 256 metres high. After each bounce, it reaches a height 25% less than its previous height. What is the height of the ball after 4 bounces? Now, the way this connects to compound interest, the 256 is the original, the 25% is equivalent effectively to the interest rate, and the 4 bounces can be compared to the number of years. But we do have to be a bit careful working out the multiplying factor, because this time it is less than the previous bounce rather than interest, which gives you more money than the previous year. So to get our multiplying factor, we start with the 100%, but each bounce is 25% less. So we're going to take off 25%, which gives us 75%. 75% is 75 divided by 100, which is 0.75. So our multiplying factor this time is 0.75. So to find the height after the 4th bounce, we need the original height multiplied by the multiplying factor, which is 0.75, and the number of bounces is 4. And 256 multiplied by 0.75 to the power 4 is 81. So after the 4th bounce, it will get to a height of 81 metres.